keep it real with ya.
Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's me, Minu, back with another video. Not about asexuality this time. I know like the last few ones have been about it, just because there's been things that's been popping up on my mind. But like I say, it's not all asexual oriented. So this is something that popped up for me because I'm in this women's group. I don't think any of them actually watched the channel, but I did tell them about the subscribers surpassing 1,000 and everything. So I was really excited about that. Don't mind the hair is doing whatever it wants to do. I'm going to have to have a conversation with my hairstylist. She's new. I'm new. So, we got to talk about what I want because she really wants my hair to hang and I'm black. So them hoes is shrinking. As you probably noticed, like it is supposed to be like this, but it's like that. Well, yeah, stop all that in there. Anyway. So this woman in the group, she's a black woman like me, young like me, maybe a little bit older than me actually. But she's in the same position that I was in back in 2018, I think. 2018? No, it's 2019. It was 2019. So for those of you who watch my video about like why black women treat each other a certain way, I talked about how after graduating college, I worked at this really, really crappy job ran by black women. A lot of black women worked there. Treated awful, had to leave. And so that job was like more of like an administrative role, and I went to college for history. So I was in this weird position where it was like anytime I would tell someone that I got a degree in history, they'd be like, so you want to be a history teacher? And I'd be like, no. And they'd be like, so you wasted your money, you in debt for nothing. And I was like, maybe. See, because if I was a white woman or a white dude, more likely is the better scenario here, it wouldn't have mattered because my parents would have paid for it and I wouldn't even be in debt. But since I'm a black woman who is first generation college student, I was in debt just to have the college experience. So it was very frustrating. And one of the big issues that I had was that, one, I didn't have a lot of experience. Two, the last job I was in was trash, so I couldn't get no recommendations. Three, because the people who I had pissed off were so high up and well known in the black intellectual community in my city, it kind of boxed me out of a lot of networking opportunities, so I couldn't really rely on the black community in my city, the city that I grew up in, where those people, they came here from somewhere else, but I grew up here, but I could not rely on my community to help me get a job because I had pissed off somebody who was well liked. Now, I know that there was some people in that video who was trying to make it seem like it was my fault or like I was over exaggerating. Several executives from that company have quit in the same year that I left and have went to work at other companies. And they talk all the time about like why work-life balance is very important. So those people and also other people my age who told me after they left, they was like, damn, Minu, it got worse after you left. I was like, I mean, I didn't want to be one of them people who shit talk a job after you leave, but yeah, so that's just me validating my experience. But if you had a different experience, that's fine too, because we're different people. Anyway, that's not what I want to talk about. Anyway, so when I graduated, I was in this really dark place, right? Because most entry-level jobs want you to have 3 to 5 years experience. And I had just graduated college the year before. And so what I had the situation of, there was 2 options I could go for. I could either try and get a job as a history teacher, which would still require me to go and get some type of further education or training to be, because I never was trained to be a teacher. I was only trained to learn history. Or I could go to an administrative job, which I thought was going to be super easy, right? I was like, sure, there's tons of people who need personal assistance, administrative assistance, executive assistance, whatever. A lot of those jobs also wanted you to have a lot of years of experience. And it was like the requirements for them told me that those jobs were specifically catering to older women because the skills that they wanted me to have were skills that I just naturally had as a millennial, Zoomer, whatever the fuck they want to call me. They were asking me particularly about my typing skills, my ability to use like this little, I think it's like a 5 keypad or something. You know, on your computer, the right side of your keyboard where it's like all the numbers, they asked specifically for me to know how to do that. And I'm like, I've owned a computer for many, many years. I know how to do that. And it was weird, right? And so what I would get from those jobs, either I would get rejected, I would get ghosted, I applied for executive assistant positions where I made it to the interview and was straight up told that I was overqualified. And I was like, I just graduated college a year ago. How am I overqualified to be an executive assistant or underqualified? And it is like, the thing about jobs is, especially in that point, it was 2019, they either did one of two things. One, they posted their dream list of everything that they could ever possibly want in a candidate, or they posted like something that they knew would get a lot of applications, but it wasn't their full list. So like I had a situation where I applied to be a administrative assistant, or really more of a secretary, I guess, receptionist, that's the word, at this law firm, right? Get in there to the interview, talking to them like, hey, I got this experience. I worked in this administrative role. I can totally be a receptionist. That's cool. And then I got told at the interview that they were looking for someone who wanted to be a lawyer. And I was very confused because, one, this job did not pay like a lawyer job or anywhere near that, or it didn't even pay like an internship level stuff. But what they basically told me, what they were hinting at to me was basically that they were hoping to get applicants who wanted to be a lawyer and was looking for a job that would allow them to network so that they could, I guess, get like lawyer connections. But I mean, honestly, I feel like if you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to be in law school, and then you're already going to be practicing in law school. So you don't need to get a job as a receptionist at a law firm to learn how to be a lawyer. You know what I mean? It just didn't make any sense. But jobs was doing that. And there was one job I even applied to at a later date where everything about the job was straight. It was administrative, bada, bada, bada. And then they didn't tell me. At this point, I knew somebody who reached out to the recruiter or the hiring manager. And then they said that actually what they wanted was someone with recruiting experience, but it wasn't a recruiter position, and nothing in the job details said that it would be recruiting, but they just put that out there. And then when my friend talked to the hiring manager, they were like, yeah, we want a recruiter. If you want a recruiter, post a job for a recruiter. I don't understand. So they do those two things. And when you're someone who doesn't have a lot of experience, or you have kind of an obscure degree, you kind of get stuck in this weird place because you are overqualified and underqualified for most jobs. And you can't even tell because these jobs are like playing games with how they post their jobs in the first place. Not to mention, and I talked about this in my job hunting red flags video, as well as the MLM videos, not to mention that there are a lot of companies that aren't even real companies, and they'll post on ZipRecruiter a lot. They'll post on Indeed sometimes, and they won't be real companies, and they're just looking to get your information. Or they're a real company, but they're so trash that they can't even recruit properly. So they will like recruit you. So they would like post a job for a position, and they want the exact opposite of everything that they posted, and you apply for no reason. So this woman who I was talking to now at this point in time, because in this women's group I'm in, a lot of us have gone through, if not all of us at this point, have gone through a significant change in our careers or our job paths in this year. You know, one woman quit her job and started her own business with baking and art. Another woman left her job and then went to work at a job in another state, like her dream job. Same thing happened to a woman who I think got laid off from her job and then applied and got accepted to another job. All of the women in my group pretty much have gone through these significant job changes where they were either laid off or they quit or they experienced being unemployed for a little bit, and then they had to go on to either be entrepreneur or find another job. So this happened with everybody. And so at this point, everybody has found a job except for the one who's doing like the entrepreneurship and the woman who triggered me to make this video in the first place, who is in a similar position to me. So I don't want to get too much into her business, but basically it was the same as me. She has this obscure degree where you graduate with the degree, but you don't have any of the actual years of experience that these jobs that you want out of somebody with that degree. And then so you work the easier jobs, which is the more administrative jobs, which are easier to get into with a bachelor's degree. But then you run into the risk of feeling like you're trapped in administrative jobs because that's the only experience that you have. So she just was feeling really down about that. And then me and the other women in the group were trying to help her. And then one of the women was like, y'all lay up off of her. She doesn't need all this pressure right now. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to put, because I have a tendency, and this is a trauma response, to go into fix-it mode. You know, when someone expresses that they are not doing well in a certain area, I immediately jump to how I can find a solution, whether that's sharing my opinion or giving advice or doing research to try and figure out the problem for them and solve it. I jump into all of that. And when the other woman was like, hey, back off of her, I was like, let me be quiet. You know, I didn't want to make her feel pressured, because she had been trying. She had been interviewing. She had been, applying for jobs. And she was having just these negative experiences of you either get ghosted or you get an interview and they say some stuff that gives you like red flags that you probably don't want to work there anyway. So she was doing what she needed to do. Whereas I have another woman that I know who was unemployed, I think right after the pandemic, but the pandemic had nothing to do with why she was unemployed. And she still hasn't found a job, but really don't think she's been applying to jobs. Or in a situation of my mother, just throw her dirty laundry out there for a minute, was unemployed prior to the pandemic and just did not want a job, but applied to jobs just to say she did, but she didn't want them. There are people out there who are like that, who genuinely do not want to get a job, but ain't in a position financially where they can just do that. So I'm acknowledging that. That's not this woman. This woman wants to have a job. She wants to have a career in what she went to school for. And she's basically not able to because of the fact that she doesn't have the experience. And so I was in a similar situation. Well, not too similar. I didn't even know what I wanted to do because I didn't want to be a history teacher. But I felt like I was trapped in administrative roles. And so a couple things that I learned throughout that position, and now get me wrong, I'm not some corporate recruiter with 30 years of experience and I know all the ins and outs and the CEOs talk to me personally. I don't know all of that, okay? I am a 25-year-old Black woman who managed to get jobs and quit her job this year to take another job. They gave her a $12,000 pay bump. And so I want to share some of the things that I've learned, especially if you are somebody who is in the exact same position that I was in, where you were both underqualified for the good jobs and overqualified for the trash jobs. They don't want to work with you at Target because you have a bachelor's degree and they don't. You know what I mean? So one of the things that I got told all the time, and this is from the career services people from my college, my friend who's 62 and has had many jobs and has worked with executives, my other friend who is a corporate recruiter. What I get told all the time is you got to have multiple resumes. That's one. You have the resume that just lists your regular experience, and then you have the resume for the job that you want. And so if there is a job, say you want to be a social media manager. I actually went and got a certification in social media management. That's pretty much most of the experience that I had in social media management. But, ma'am, Sadie, what do you want? What, Sadie? What? You got something to say? Say it to the camera. Say it to the microphone. What, Sadie? No, I'm not going to pet you. I'm making a video. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my video then, since you want to just stand there with your hump up, hoping that I'm going to pet you. I'm not going to pet you. I'm making a video. Anyway, so even if you don't have a lot of experience in something, you're going to want a resume that's going to highlight the little experience you do have. So with social media management, I actually got the certificate, and then I helped out a friend who was a filmmaker as far as giving her advice on her social media account. I put that shit on the resume. Was I paid? No. Was it a lot? Did I spend a lot of time doing it? No. But I put that shit on my resume. Also into filmmaking. I enjoy filmmaking. I made a film. When I was applying to jobs that involved anything related to filmmaking, I highlighted that. It was not paid. It was something I did in college. But I highlighted that. When it came to the job that I ended up getting, and this is another tip that I think is good for people our age, simply because these jobs just be playing games. One thing that my friend, mentor, former recruiter always tells me is like, think of yourself as a white man. So, white man, I knew some white dudes in college. When I tell you, no experience, hadn't even graduated college yet, and was getting offers for jobs that was going to pay him 6 figures with a company car and a company card. This nigga had no experience. He hadn't even had a degree yet. They offered him the job before he had the degree. Why? Because he was a white man. And like, there's literally like, he didn't have, I think his degree was in something basic too. And I was, and he told me about this, and I was like asking my recruiter, I was like, why the hell, what's he got that I don't got? Like, he doesn't even seem like he cares about this. And then she was like, oh, well, you know, the way networking works, you know, sometimes if you work in like around a certain group of people, they know people who know people, and he ends up getting a job because he's in this club. I'm gonna say, because I don't want to be super specific. And they said that people in that club have the type of interpersonal qualities that they look for, even if you don't have any experience. And I was like, so you mean tell me that a white man can get hired off of personality alone? But if you a black man or a black woman, you got to have 5 years of experience to get this entry level position? And she was like, yes. I was like, I see. But it's true. And the best way to get your advantage, similar, I don't know if I could ever be on a level of a white man, but similar to these white men, what I tried to do was network my ass off. So I was in a weird situation because I had lost the potential network that I could have had through the black community when I got done dirty by them black women at that job. So I had to network through the white people, through my people who went to my college. So I spoke with career services. I spoke with alumni relations. I networked with people who I kind of sort of knew in college. Like, hell, if I saw your ass walking down the hallway one day and I remember your face, and I know you remember my face because I got a very specific face, I'm sending you a message on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever and be like, hey, I heard you work at this company. Can you hook me up with somebody? Can you hook me up with a recruiter? Tell me about it. Morticia, you better not be in my kitchen licking my plates. Watch, let me go get her ass. I swear, y'all, I don't know what I'm gonna do with Morticia, because I swear she was in there in my sink licking my plates. I mean, I'm gonna wash them anyway, but still, that's kind of nasty. I left, came home, and I was like, there was no way. There was no dishes for her to get into. Came home, my fucking air fryer basket was on the floor, licked clean. All the chicken tender crumbs. Who this girl? I don't know what I'm doing with her. Sadie's sitting right here chilling. Morticia out there causing havoc. Anyway, as I was saying, you gotta network your ass off. And the college I went to happened to be very friendly. There was some black people who went there who were not connected to that network that I won't say I fucked it up, but that got fucked up for me. Who were like, oh yeah, I work with this obscure nonprofit that you've never heard of, and they need someone for this. I'll connect you to that person. Reach out to the white people. Oh, I work at this nonprofit that does this. They'll really like you because they just like people who graduated from our college. You know, anybody who was doing anything, anybody who managed to get a job after college, I was reaching out to them on Facebook, LinkedIn, like, what's up? Help me out here. These are my credentials. It's easy to get a job with a nonprofit because you just got to be like passionate. So I kind of like, when I interview with certain jobs like that, I kind of played up the whole, I am a black queer woman from the South, first generation college student. Like, I'm ticking your boxes. I care a lot about these things that affect me and affect my community specifically. I would play that up. But in reality, I didn't really want to go back to a nonprofit because of the fact that I gotten done so dirty at the one that I was at. And nonprofits tend to not do well when it comes to work-life balance. So, I still was interviewing because I was like, hey, some job is better than no job. Bitch wasn't trying to be unemployed because moms wasn't going to pay my bills. Dad wasn't going to pay my bills. I had to pay my bills, you know. And I think at that time I was living with my friend in the hood when I had that job. And then I left that job and we had to move to another place. And I was unemployed, but I had saved up money from the trash job so that I could, you know, so there wouldn't be an issue getting the next apartment. But what ended up really helping me, I had my resume everywhere, you know, like had my LinkedIn updated, had my Indeed resume on file, all of this stuff. I get this email randomly from this recruiter from a like a staffing agency. So this was pure luck that this guy reached out to me. I almost thought he was spam, but I agreed to have a conversation with him anyway. And I'm glad I did because he was legit. He was from a staffing agency that was around the corner from where I stayed. We had a quick phone call. We talked about the experience that I had. And he said, listen, I'm trying to get my commission. I'm going to get paid based off of what you get paid. So if I can get you in a job, that's what I want to do. Like, that's where I'm coming from, is to get you a job. I was like, well, shit, yeah, I'm trying to get a job. So let's go. What's up? Where you at? Met him in person, was all dressed up and everything. And like, while I was sitting in the little waiting room at their office, because they had a legitimate office, which is good. And the company was well known. They weren't random. There was another black woman in there, and she was like, yeah, they got me a job in like a few days. Like after the interview, I immediately was offered a job, and I was like, damn. But what type of job did they get you? And it was an administrative job. And I was like, hey, I ain't gonna hate on that. So it wasn't like some kind of thing where, like, when I talked about in the job hunting red flags and I talked about job scams where they had you doing some kind of random job that made no sense. It was like an actual job with an actual company. So I get back there, I'm dressed all up, business, professional. I have my resume and everything. He's sitting there talking to me about how he's like pulling out things in my resume that can be used as like leverage for job applications. So he's like, actually, I got this big name company, which was a big name company, especially in my area, where I think that it's a temporary position, but it's going to be good for you to get in there because temporary jobs don't require a lot of experience. Now he was like, now with a temporary job, you're not going to get benefits like insurance or anything. But at the time I was still on my parents' insurance. So I was like, I can do that. I can swing that. And so the temporary job ended up being kind of administrative, but a little bit more higher level because it was dealing with like HR stuff and like confidential information. So they wanted somebody who they felt could be like trustworthy. So it's like, you didn't need a lot of skills. Cause like they was like, what, are you familiar with Excel? And I was like, I can get familiar with Excel. The most I'd done with Excel was like filling in blocks on the thing. I didn't know shit about Excel, but I was like, I can get familiar with it if that's what I need. And he was like, you know what? I like you. I like your personality. You got these like administrative skills. I'm going to set up an interview with the guy and see where it goes. And so he sets up an interview with the guy real quick. And at the time I actually got a call from someone who I had met through networking with my friends from college who had this small nonprofit. And she was like, hey, I have this sales job. I know it's not really ideal, but if you ain't got a job, it wouldn't hurt to like come interview for it. You know what I mean? And I was like, hey, shit, any job is a job right now. And that job was going to pay me $15 an hour. I was like, great. If I can do it, I can do it. And they were a small nonprofit, so it wasn't like a high profile sales job. So I had that lined up. I was going to interview with them as well. And then I had the first interview with the guy from the larger company, and all he really did was ask me, like, are you comfortable with Excel? Are you comfortable with confidential information? How good is your computer skills? I was like, bruh, I'm like, how old was I at the time? Like 23 or something? I was like, bro, I'm 23. Like, I got the computer skills. You know what I mean? You know, I was like, I got a bachelor's degree. I can type. You know what I mean? So I was kind of like, he was just kind of asking me like if I fit like these very basic qualities that they would look for in a job. And he was like, oh, okay. And I was super nervous. Like, when I tell you I got tongue twisted, I literally was like, I literally did that on the call because I was super nervous because this company was so huge. And I was like, this makes no sense to me. But coming from the background that I came from, it's a lot of shit that I didn't know about the world. I didn't know that a temporary job could pay a lot of money and get you in the door with a big company. So literally, like the next day, and mind you, I still had this interview lined up with this other company. The next day, I get a call from the recruiter through the staffing agency, and they say, hey, the guy you interviewed for likes you. He wants you to start, and they want to pay you $22 an hour. And I was like, now, I immediately had a whole mental breakdown and like called my mentor, my white friend mentor, and was like, what the fuck do I do? And she was like, go with the larger corporate company because one, the other company is a nonprofit and it's a sales job and that's not aligned with you at all. Two, the larger company is going to have networking opportunities. You're going to make more money and you're probably going to get way more skills than you think. So I ended up going with that. And this was complete luck. Like, again, this isn't something where I networked my way into it. I did network my way into other opportunities, but this job particularly came through a staffing company. Now, I will say, those large staffing companies like Randstad, Kelly Services, whatever, they don't reply to your emails. They don't reply to your messages. That's not how you do it. When you are dealing, and matter of fact, I even think the staffing company I went through, if I had applied on their website or something, I probably wouldn't have got a call. But I will say, if you know a particular person at that staffing company and you can reach out to them directly, primarily through LinkedIn, which is what I did. I'm going to talk about that in a second. So I worked at this company, got a lot of great experience, networked with a lot of people, was really scared because it was my first job after that traumatic experience. And I just felt I was fucking up all the time. And I kept asking my manager to give me like performance reviews, and he kept being like, I can't. You technically are not like a full-time employee. I don't have a performance review, but he'll be like, you're doing great. And I got along with everybody I worked with, which there were Black people there, and it was in HR, and I got to see what real HR look like, and they don't fucking play. They do not play around with harassment or any of that stuff. And they would even tell me about my previous company, like some of that shit was downright illegal, and then some of that shit was a really, really poorly run company and a bad company culture, which is very validating. But I worked that job for about a year. And when I tell you my manager loved me, like he would have hired me if they would allow him to, but it was budget stuff. So it was literally like, we can only have a temporary person in this position. Your position has to be temporary. So it's going to end. But he managed to get it extended a little bit so that I wouldn't be unemployed for too long. What I ended up doing the next time, and this is what I think will help a lot of you guys, is finding a specific person who works at a staffing agency. So I found this woman who worked at a staffing agency that I hadn't heard of before, but when I reached out to my like white older friend mentors, they knew about the company, and they also knew that person because they were older white women, and this person was an older white woman. So my mentor actually reached out to her, and no, my mentor didn't reach out to her, but my mentor said, drop my name when you email her or you message her on LinkedIn, use my name so she knows that this is someone that I referred to. So I went on LinkedIn and I sent her a message and says, hey, my friend this said to reach out to you because I'm in a temporary job right now and I'm looking for another job. And she called me and was like, oh, well, if you know so, then I have to give you my time, because she's super, super busy, right? But she got with me and says, oh, how much you making your current job? And I was like, 22. And she was like, how about 25? I was like, wait, what? And she was like, I'm going to get you in another position. And I was like, oh, okay. And she was like, and you have great experience because you've worked with HR, you've worked with this confidential information. really the biggest thing, I guess, with HR is that they really want to know that you're capable of handling confidential information, which I am. And she says, you got these skills. Here's a job that's really similar to what you were already doing, but on a smaller scale. And they're going to pay between like what, $22 and $25. Since what you get paid determines what I get paid, I'm going to tell them to give you $25 an hour. And I was like, okay, because at the end of the day, a staffing person who's from like a staffing company, they are trying to get paid. They are trying to get that commission off placing you. Now, a trash staffer might try to just place you wherever they can so that they can get the commission. But this woman was about her shit. She been in the game for a long time. She's an old white lady. And she wanted me to be, not only did she want me to be in a position where it was going to stick and I was going to stay there for a while, because what I get paid, they get paid, what they get paid a percentage of the total of what I get paid. So I'd probably be making 25, but the company itself might be paying 30. I don't know. And they'd be pocketing that extra $5 an hour. So not only that, but 2, she wanted to make sure she had a good reputation. And 3, whenever I left that temporary position and I did good at it, she could keep putting me in other jobs, temporary or not, and she would keep getting her commission. So it may sound weird to be like, oh, these staffing people, these temporary people, they're just trying to get paid. But that's actually a good thing in this situation, because if they're smart, they are going to place you somewhere where you belong. You're going to get a lot of experience that you wouldn't previously get if you were applying as a full-time position. And you are going to be able to beef up your resume. When I tell you my resume was looking buff as hell after I left the first temporary position, I was only in the second temporary position for like a month before my manager from the first temporary position hooked me up with an interview to have a full-time position at the same company, just in a different like area. So like I networked the shit out of that. I did a lot of stuff because I was temporary, so they could really get me to do anything. So I put all that shit on my resume. My resume started looking really, really good. And I was only in the second temp job for like a month. I put all that shit on my resume too. You better believe, yes, sir, I do have recruiting experience. Yes, I do have experience onboarding employees, processing I-9s, handling confidential information, helping companies maintain compliance. All of that went on there. Even though it was only a month there, I put all of that on there. And when I did all that, then I go into an actual full-time position. Yeah, it was a pay decrease. It was a pay decrease. I won't lie. But I got benefits because I was no longer on my parents' insurance. So I got the healthcare benefits and everything, which is pretty good. Well, the prescription benefits were good. The actual healthcare benefits weren't that good. They didn't really cover shit. But anyway, I worked that job for like a year. And I networked my ass off while I was in that job too. I was sending emails to people. I was still keeping in touch with my former managers. I was like, setting up calls, adding people on LinkedIn, talking to people in the marketing department. I got a history degree. I was talking to people in the marketing department, talking to people in learning and development, talking to people in the talent acquisition. I was talking to anybody who was willing to talk to me. Because a lot of times, and this is a lot of white people too, the way you get jobs, if you're thinking about it from the perspective of I'm a white man and I don't have a lot of experience, they're getting jobs based off their personality. They're getting jobs because people like them. People like talking to them. People felt like when they talked to them, they felt like that person had like the right initiative, or they had ambition, or they were willing to learn. So even if they didn't have the experience, they were still willing to learn and they had a good attitude. That is what carries those people. And so you have to do the same thing, because I promise you, there's a lot of people, they don't really look at your resume. They don't. They barely look at resumes. I even went to like little seminars where managers at my company talked about stuff, and they was like, we don't look at the resume too much. As the hiring manager, they barely look at resumes. The recruiter is the one that puts the resume in front of them to look at. And so you got to know that recruiter if you want your resume to go in front of the manager. Sometimes the manager think they found a person, and the recruiter will come out of nowhere and say, hey, what about this guy? I like this person. I'm going to push them to you. And you might end up getting a job that way. So like if you're just literally just thinking like, oh, I'm just going to send my resume to this company and hope to get a call back, it's likely not going to happen. Also, companies this year or throughout the whole pandemic have been really, really fucking bold in the fact that they make you go through like 5 interviews and then they ghost you, or they do stuff where they want you to do like trial runs to see if you're good at the job so they can watch you do the job, which is really just free labor, by the way. All of that is bullshit. All that is bullshit. Because at the end of the day, they probably already know who they're going to hire. Because some of the interviews that I went through, I guarantee you, they already knew who they were going to hire, and they were just interviewing people because they had to legally. There was at least 2 jobs where I interviewed and I'm like, they already had the person when they interviewed me. There was nothing I could say that was going to change their mind. But they interviewed me for the sake of it, to waste my fucking time and theirs. So let me, because this is a lot. I just spent a lot of time talking. So let me go through this again, okay? First thing is, match your resume to whatever the fuck the job description is. So if the job description uses very specific language about what they want you to do in the job, change your resume to add those specific words. Because if a recruiter isn't reading it and is going through some kind of ATS system, which applicant tracking system, is going to be looking for those specific words. So that's the first thing. And if a recruiter is looking for it, they got a hell of a lot of resumes to look at. They looking for specific words. They looking to underline shit and keep it moving. You either going to no pal or the yes pal. They can keep moving because they got a lot of resumes to go through. So make sure whatever's in that job description, your resume says those exact words. So if the job description says something like, let me see something. Investigated employee relations concerns or something like that, and in your job you did that, but you called it you said you looked into employee issues, change your resume and say you investigated employee concerns. Change your resume to use, like if you're doing HR specifically, like employee relations investigations, make sure to use the word confidentiality a lot is what I use with HR. And that's just my specific thing, but make sure it matches the exact job description if you want that job. Now, if you're just applying to a job to get the unemployment benefits and you don't care if they call you back or not, they ain't got nothing to do with me. You can put whatever the fuck you want. But if you actually want the job, match your resume to what the job description says and make sure you're using the exact same words. That's first thing. The second thing is network your ass off. Everybody you went to college with, everybody you went to high school with, friends of friends, anybody. Matter of fact, sometimes I just send shit to people on LinkedIn. If you got a job in a place that I want to work, or if you got a job in a career field that I want to work in, I'm gonna send you a LinkedIn request and see if you accept it. Because sometimes people accept it because they just want more connections. Boom, bam. Now you can send them a message and you might be able to have a good conversation with that person where they might say, let me hook you up. Case in point, when I was at that big company, someone sent me a LinkedIn request who went to my college. Never met the nigga. But I accepted it. And he said, hey, I'm trying to get into this company because I want to work in data analytics or whatever. And I was like, got you, fam. Give me a minute. Message somebody I worked with, say, hey, who's the recruiter for the data analytics team? And they'll be like, oh, it's so. So I said, okay. Can I give their name to this person who went to my college who's trying to network? And they were like, yeah, you don't give them the contact information, but you can give them their name and they can pull them up on LinkedIn. I said, bet. I went back to this dude and said, hey, Christy over here is the recruiter for data analytics. Shoot her a LinkedIn message and see if you can connect. He was like, oh, thank you. Pay it forward. Never met him in my life. It's up to him now to sell himself to that recruiter so that recruiter can put him in to whatever positions that are open right now in the data analytics team. You know what I mean? So I help people out like that because people help me out like that. And you never know who's out there who's trying to help people out like that. So network your ass off with anybody who's willing to speak with you, because sometimes all you need is a chance to talk to somebody and they might decide that they like you enough to hook you up. So that's that. 3, look into temporary staffing agencies. I know a lot of people think that a temp job, because I thought temp jobs, because my family didn't go to college. I thought temp jobs was like they gonna make you go do some package handling at the warehouse for a couple months and then you gone. You know what I mean? I thought it was gonna be mostly manual stuff. But there's a surprisingly amount of companies now. I'll say is because these companies are cheap and don't want to have to pay salary and benefits. But there are a lot of companies, particularly larger companies, that because they don't want to hire full-time people, only want to hire temporary people. And that can be your way into the company. So reach out to these staffing agencies. Don't just apply on their websites or anything. Like literally go and look for recruiters at that staffing agency and send them LinkedIn requests and talk to them. Because that little message that you sent to them is going to lead you into maybe a phone call, which is going to lead you into maybe a interview, which is going to lead you into maybe a temporary position. But you're at a large company where you get to network and people get to know you and know your face. So when another job comes up, they're thinking about you. Like I literally had people who worked in recruiting who was like, oh, Minu, I remember working with you when you was over in that other team. You remember me? I used to be in the break room or whatever. And I'd be like, yeah, I remember you. And they'd be like, well, we got all these recruiter positions opening up. You know what I mean? You never know who you're going to meet. And I know it's scary because I have a lot of anxiety. I hate calling people on the phone. I hate receiving phone calls out of the blue. I hate having to like sell myself and be extroverted and try to like prove myself to somebody. But sometimes these people really just want to know if you're going to be a good personality fit, and they'll work the other stuff out later. And worst case scenario, you get in a job and you don't like it that much. Who gives a fuck? It's a temporary position. If you leave, no one holds it against you. Because when I was in my second temp job, I left because I got a full-time position with the company from my first temp job. And they were literally like, damn, you a good employee and we really wish we could hire you, but they're only letting us hire temps right now. But, if the other job don't work out, call us back. And sure enough, like almost a year later, they were still doing temporary positions and I wanted to leave my job and I thought about it. But after I left, they started paying less. So I was like, I knew what I wanted to make by the time I left my previous job. And now I was very firm on that. And that's why I only applied to jobs where I knew that they were going to pay at least what I needed them to pay. Because the rent bills is too much. I don't have time to play games with no $15 an hour. And my rent is over $1,000 and I live by myself. No, I can't do it. But anyway, resumes, networking, temporary jobs. Those are going to be the things that are going to get you in the door. Especially now, there are a lot of companies who are struggling. Even good companies. I ain't even gonna lie. Last company was a little... Even good companies are struggling to keep people because it's a super competitive market. And there's always going to be somebody who's willing to pay more. So some of these companies are like, fuck it, we're going to hire temp workers. They could hire you. Like when I tell you, there were jobs where if you apply for it as a full-time employee, they want you to have 10 years of experience. If you're a temporary employee, they want you to have 3. They don't ask a lot of people for temporary positions because it's temporary. So, and you never know, some of these temp jobs may go permanent if they get the budget to do so. So I really, really want to encourage people. I know it's getting darker and darker. Let me see if I can turn this up. It's getting darker and darker because it's like later in the day when I'm doing this. That's why the, what's the name, isn't so good. Nah, I'm gonna leave it where it was. Yeah, but that just shows you how long I've been talking, how dark it's gotten on me. But yeah, knowing how I felt when I was in that situation, knowing how I felt like nothing I did was good enough, like fuck it, even Kroger ghosted me for 6 months and then they finally reached out to reject me, and I have a fucking bachelor's degree. Like, knowing how it feels when you apply to all these companies and you either get rejected or you get ghosted, you don't feel like you're good enough, you don't feel like you have the right skills, you feel like you're trapped in whatever menial job that you were working when you graduated or before you graduated. It takes a toll on you mentally. And I'm not saying to just go, because your mental health is important. So you really want to like space it out. Like I spaced it out. Like after a certain time a day, I wasn't applying to jobs because I did not want to put myself in that mental space again. But it feels really bad. And I don't want other people to feel like that, especially if you went to college and you got the debt and you ain't got the job. You know what I mean? So go out there and get you a fucking job if you want one, but go out there and get you a fucking job and utilize the networks that are available. I guarantee you somebody knows somebody who knows somebody, and maybe it goes nowhere, maybe it goes somewhere. Maybe you show up to an event and you run into somebody. You just never know what's out there unless you go looking for it and you open yourself up to it. Yeah, you're gonna have to be brave. Yeah, you're gonna have to step out of your comfort zone. It's not gonna be fun, but once you finally land a job that you want, like me with my work from home job that pays good money and has unlimited PTO and like all of these great things that I wanted out of a company, you're gonna look back and be like, I'm glad that I did all the things that I did because it got me to where I am today. And if you have several interviews and it doesn't result in a job, you just got more interview experience. Like literally, I got more comfortable doing interviews from doing all those other interviews. And I got less stressed out about it, especially now when you can do interviews over the video. And you know me, if you've been watching my videos, I do pretty well over video versus in person. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. I know the video is a bit longer. Sorry about that. But I just really wanted to give you guys some advice from somebody who actually did it successfully. And I don't want anybody to feel that like worthless, not good enough feeling that I felt. I don't like that. So I just want you guys to enjoy the rest of your weekend. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Take care of yourself. Take naps. Eat snacks. Do whatever you need to do to make yourself feel content and calm and happy because you deserve it. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.